Why is there no drink in the country that sort of takes into consideration everything about India? You know what? Let's create a liquor product which will, in every sip, remind you that it is a product made in India. You know that idea you had when you were 25? That's not gonna work. There's something else bigger, better.
You had a curiosity for beverages and you saw liquor as just another beverage.
That's
and I
right.
think
It is something that is considered male dominating, but that's only if women don't enter it, right? So
you had a very unconventional dad, and there were such lovely stories you shared.
So I think for me, he made sure that everything I do would always be this peak of a challenge.
Yeah.
We're talking about the mysticism of India. We're talking about this invisible thread that's sort of connecting all of us. I'm getting into a very taste-focused market. That means my product has to be so good, so smooth that once people try it, they will come back for more.
I'm sure you would have had many challenges on the strategy front, right?
Even if we are not in that state today, we will research about it. We will read through the fine lines way before we're even going to enter that state. We were in a particular market and we suddenly got to know that they've changed the policy overnight with a new change in government. Ma'am, we love your products. The product is moving well in the market. Ma'am, yahan pe jo hai, like the local people, they don't want your product because it's competing with the local range. There is this feeling of she's new in the industry, why should she get more? So while Rahasya and Yaksha are more indie, Salty Nerd is for the Gen Z. The best part of this whole journey for me is no matter how much negative has happened, little here and there, the positive trumps it.
Welcome to the Shio Effect, the podcast where we amplify the wisdom of women leaders who are fearlessly navigating the complexities of strategy, culture, and leadership in India. Today, we have a guest who embodies audacious authenticity. She's the co founder and CEO of the House of Bliss Water, the company behind India's first artisanal infused vodka, Rahasya, and the award winning whiskey, Yaksha. She did not just enter a male dominated taboo industry, she redefined it by infusing it with Indian mysticism and elegance. She's a leader who was paying rent to her father at the age of 18 and her first driving lesson facing a cliff, and who, at 35, took a huge risk against all internal advice to create a beloved Indian whiskey. She doesn't just listen to advice, she deciphers the wisdom hidden within the doubt. Please give a warm welcome to the incredibly resilient, charmingly mischievous, and perpetually evolving visionary Varna Bhatt. Welcome to the Shio Effect.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad that we're doing this.
Varna, you chose to enter a most culturally challenging and a male dominated industry of India, right? You started off where you mentioned that people said that this is not, are you mad? You're spoiling your life. This is what you want to do. Where did you find the courageous authenticity to look through all these doubts and start what you started?
I think the idea had already sort of taken shape. All of these were a lot more told to me a little after the idea was in. So sometimes you just had to sort of push through and get done. Of course, there were moments of doubt, wondering, do they know something that I don't? All those kinds of thoughts. But I'm just glad that I stuck to my guts on it and went ahead. It is something that is considered male dominating, but that's only if women don't enter it, right? So someone has to start.
And I'm glad you did. You also mentioned during our chat that you had a curiosity for beverages and you saw liquor as just another beverage.
That's
and I
right.
think it comes from your progressive Goan perspective.
That's right. That's right.
right? What would you recommend that women have a mad streak to, try out such
No, I think
such
it's a
challenging areas, right?
yeah. From a product perspective, I think it's just a lifestyle. Even though a large part of our country considers it a taboo, it's no more so today. It was something that maybe have looked at maybe a decade from now. People are a little more progressive about it. For me, of course, coming from a state in Goa, it was just another product. Like I said, a beverage, right? That people will just sort of enjoy during a celebration or just when they want to wind down a day. That's how we looked at it. That's how I saw it while I was growing up. It was never considered something that's a complete no-no. As a result, it never sort of in my head, it never felt like something I was doing as a taboo.
Is it? That is nice. Do you feel that the cultural background where you were raised was one of the reasons?
For sure, for sure. It definitely helped me be very forthright with it.
Yeah.
I grew up around people who would make very interesting wines in our backyards. I remember one of my mom's very close friend used to make this plum wine. You know these
Mhm.
jamuns?
Yeah.
Yeah, she used to make a wine out of that. Things that people had never seen outside, but for us it was just par for the course.
The reason why I asked that question was I'm sure that there are a lot of women who want to do something which is, considered not a women's zone or what's not a women's space. And what would your advice be for them?
At least with me, I never set out wanting to do it. It ended up being in a sector that was. But yes, I know of a lot of people who are very focused in doing something that have never been done. They're real trailblazers. For someone like that who's looking up for something like that, looking into a sector that way, I think the most important thing would be one to have the right set of people around you to support you through it. Ask the right questions, because if you ask, you'll get an answer. Whether the answer is right or wrong is a different story, but never stop asking.
I also feel that it came from, you had a very unconventional dad, and there were such lovely stories you
Yes.
shared that made you keep yourself calm under pressure and navigate. I would love the audience to hear some of those stories that
Okay.
shaped and built you to who you are.
My dad always would create a challenge for us, all kinds of it. And even a simple thing that he would tell us, my sister and I would always be like, oh, what's the next thing that is going to be told? We were always looking for the catch behind it. I'll give you an interesting story that happened. So I was just about the right age to learn driving. And my mother was trying to learn driving through a driving school. And he was watching her through the whole thing. She did it for a few days, and then she said she wants an additional course to be done some more days. He sort of noticed that. He said, "Yeah, great, do what you want." One fine day, he just comes home in the middle, like he used to come home late in the evening after a long day at work. He came home and I was studying. I had an exam coming up. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm studying." He said, "You're wide awake?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." He goes into my other room. My cousins had also come over. He got my sister, my cousin, and my mom, woke them up. And he said, "We're going for a drive." Everyone was very excited. We said, "Okay, we'll all go for a drive." It was one of the things he used to do with us. Suddenly, he takes us to this one place, which is a very interesting sort of a cliff. It's like this sort of a hairpin kind of a cliff. He parked the car right in the middle of it, facing down, right? He gets out of the car and he says, "Come, you're going to start driving now." And I have never even like sat behind the wheel ever before that, right?
Is it?
Yeah, that was the first time. And I'm just looking at my dad and he says, "Your entire family is sitting here. You do something wrong, you're putting all of us in jeopardy."
Wow.
And I'm like, what do I say to this man? And I know him. He will not let go till I sit there and do what he wants me to do. Like, all right. I'm like, "What's the catch?" He's like, "No catch. You just have to drive us back home safely." I said, "Okay." So I sit there. I said, "Okay, at least give me the theory behind it. What's what?" Thankfully, I was riding a bike by then, and I always also knew to ride a geared bike. So I had the idea of a gear clutch, the typical technical stuff. But then car is a little different. So he said, "This is a clutch, this is your brake, this is your accelerator, blah, 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 this is your gear, all that stuff." I said, "Okay, seems somewhat okay." And I'm about to like start the engine, and he says, "Oh, by the way," I'm like, there comes the disclaimer. He says, "If you move it forward, I'm never going to let you drive the car. You're not driving it forward, you're taking it on reverse." That was my first lesson. And I'm like, I'm looking at my mom. My mom she's like, "I don't want to get in between the two of you. Don't even do that to me." My sister's like full on cheerleading. They're like, "Dee, you can do it." So it was like this interesting circus in the car. And then he looks at me, he's like, "There's nothing I've told you and you've not been able to do, or there's nothing you've put your mind to and not done it. So what's stopping you now?" I said, "Okay, explain the theory to me again now." I need to reverse the car. So then he was very patient, but he was clear that at the end of it, you're going to complete it. I think half an hour of negotiations and not getting anywhere. I said, "Finally, we'll do this." And yeah, that was my first, drive. I did take a reverse. I did the right stuff. And he said, okay, now you know how to drive. Now take us back home. So I drove all the way home. And that's it. That's how I learned to drive a car. So I think for me, he made sure that everything I do would always be this peak of a challenge.
Hmm.
So therefore, when something like this came up, I think you've already sort of sensitized yourself to like possible hurdles.
Mhm.
So you tend to sort of move faster.
Was he there behind the idea of you starting?
No, I lost him before this happened, but I'm sure wherever he is, he'd be, you know, having a peg every evening. That's his version of a heaven. Yaksha's definitely with him there. Yeah.
Glad to see that you're carrying his memory
Oh,
and
for
his
sure.
stories
Yes,
everywhere.
yes.
And yeah, that's truly inspiring. But no, I would love to hear how you came up with these wonderful names, Yaksha, Rahasya. These are very, has a mystical tinge to it. And, I would love to hear the story once again.
For sure. I think this story begins with Rahasya in Blisswater. They say all ideas come at some very interesting, points. This happened at a drunken night. Different story that I was one of the sober ones. A bunch of my friends, we always get together once a year, and we always sort of appoint someone to be a designated driver. So there's always someone who's ensuring they're safe. And everyone that day, for some reason, the topic ended up being, why is there no drink in the country that sort of takes into consideration everything about India? Of course, there are like these amazing local brews in northeast of India, like the Opong. There are a lot of these. Mahua is an interesting tribal concoction. You've got your Fennies in Goa. But there was nothing that was on a commercial scale that could sort of look at it from a brand per se and could be, say, covers the idea of Kashmir to Kanyakumari, East West, all of it. So that sort of idea just stuck with me. This was about a year before the whole concept of this water actually took shape. It was such a, strong sort of a thought process for me. And like I told you when I spoke before, that I always wanted to create a beverage. And this sort of added to that thing. And I'm like, you know what? Let's create a liquor product, which will, in every sip, remind you that it is a product made in India. Now, to create that, that was interesting, right? Like, how do you say what is what sort of has an India base in it?
Hmm.
What will you, try and say? Yes, there's definitely something Indian about it. So that took me some while. I did a lot of research from like scriptures, lot of things. I also traveled quite a bit across the country. So a lot of these notes here and there. Finally, put together this flavor that we believe as a group in Blisswater is what we call the India infusion. Now, what's interesting about Rahasya, if you try it or if somebody else tries it, they'll all talk of one or two spices that they're connected with, but
Oh.
they'll never be able to really tell what's in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we completed the product and we did a blind tasting for it, everybody was asking this question, Isme kya hai?
Ah,
Okay, what's in it? And I was like, that itself is the story, right?
yeah.
We're talking about the mysticism of India. We're talking about, this invisible thread that's sort of connecting all of us. And I think the best way to explain that would be a word that sort of imbibes that and secrets or mystery. And that's how Rahasya was born. And it's a 3 a.m. sort of a, eureka moment. Suddenly you get up and you're like, I was telling my husband, I think we found the name, this is what we're gonna call it. And he's like, please go to bed. It's 3 in the morning. We'll discuss about it. I'm like, no, we know what we're gonna call it. And I was so
It
excited
was a
about
eureka
it.
moment for you.
Yeah. So I think that's how Rahasya sort of happened. It's our flagship. It's something it's very dear to us. And it's also a very complex recipe.
Hmm.
So we make them in like small batches. We make it as per demand. We're not very pushy about it.
Okay.
We let the demand build on its own. So that's how Rahasya began.
And
Yeah.
the Yaksha has a very mischievous
Yes.
note to it.
And then once we created the product, I always knew that we need a whiskey in our portfolio because India is a massively whiskey drinking market. 70% of the consumption in spirits is whiskey. So the work for Yaksha started very close to Rahasya in terms of the blend creation. And again, with regards to the name, so we wanted something that's when you look at it, has this noble sort of a feel, but it also brings out that little bit of mystery, a little bit of mischievousness. And Yaksha, it was just the right way to sort of, explain that.
And how much of this mystery and mischievousness do you have?
Oh, a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, so much of it because I think a lot of the creativity comes from a lot of mischievousness in the background. A lot of what if I do this one little tweak, will that make a difference? Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of that.
It's lovely. So when you launched these your creative innovations, I'm sure you heard a lot of pushback saying, "Hey, it is too competitive." I think I heard we also had a conversation about it, and there were a lot of no's coming from many places. How did you navigate that?
Especially for Yaksha. I mean, Rahasya, because it was so unique, everyone said, hey, she's creating something completely different. I think let's see where it goes. But with Yaksha, even though it's different in its own way, it was a whiskey.
Yeah, and you're
And
entering a whiskey mug.
yeah,
Yeah,
and whiskey in India is so
yeah.
competitive, right? So everybody from people in my core team to my family to everybody I spoke to about, or even people I would consider my mentors, or I still do. When I spoke to them, they were like, I don't know why you're getting into something that's so difficult and that's so competitive. There was a day I came back really flustered. I'd actually worked on the blend. The blend was ready. And I wanted a set of people who I typically speak to for the next steps. I wanted them to sort of try it, experience it, and somehow the whole thing got sort of bulldozed into being, are you really sure? Is that where we want to put our monies into? Is that what we want to do? All kinds of questions. I came back and I sort of put together a pros and cons list. This is, why are they saying no to it? Why are they saying yes to it? Or if anyone is saying yes at all, why am I so, pushy for it? Put that together and I realized that at the bottom of it all, everyone was just interested in us actually doing well. They may have different ways of having opinions about it. But once you realize that crux, I said, okay, you know what? They're telling me I'm getting into a competitive market, which means my packaging has to be really, really next level. I'm getting into a very strongly, taste focused market. That means my product has to be so good, so smooth that once people try it, they will come back for more. Thankfully, I said, okay, you know what? My first blend, my first draft, we're going to scrap it. I'm going to now take all their feedback and recreate something that people will never be able to reject. It's not just about perseverance in that particular desire to create it, but also to understand what everyone else was trying to say and make the product really, really good.
Somewhere listening to that, you didn't want to prove anybody wrong, rather, you
No.
wanted to get it right.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I would gain by proving somebody wrong.
Yeah.
But if I did get it right, then not just me, everyone who's in it will also benefit from it.
I'm sensing this whole passion for this design, name, creativity. I'm sure you would have had many challenges on the strategy front, right? It's a never changing market. Laws keep changing state by state, and it's always a backup for a backup for a backup. How did you strategize? What challenges you faced?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I get my core team to work on is first put together your absolute fixed aspects. And then let's look at the variables. Now, you can't do anything about the variables. What you can do is be sure of how the fixed aspects can be definitely looked at. What can we fix? We can fix the name, and it has to be very catchy. We can fix a design, which can be really good. But what we did is we took a step forward. We said, hey, what are the typical issues that people face in this industry? Every state has a different regulation. Then let's read the state regulations. It's okay. Even if we are not in that state today, we will research about it. We will read through the fine lines way before we're even going to enter that state. That made a difference in terms of ensuring that the label or anything had enough space for accommodating any new changes that would come through, because those are things that are out of our control. Now, coming to that, no matter how much you try, of course, there will always be certain amount of ground reality that are different. Like, we were in a particular market and we suddenly got to know that they've changed the policy overnight with a new change in government, which means we either change our pricing or we change some strategy that will work with it. So that part, we said, let's look at it when it comes. But as much as we can, let's try to prep for it. So those are certain things that we try to do as much as we can.
You also said your business was profitable early on, right? And that means focusing on the bottom line.
Yes.
For a person who has this whole creative flair and it's the vision and the creativity, Focusing on the bottom line is not an easy
It's
thing to
not
do.
easy at all. But I think it came from before Blisswater, the businesses that I was handling. We were obviously very bottom line focused. I was into a marketing branding industry where we used to manufacture eco friendly fabric based products. And there, every unit had to be profitable for the factory to run well. So, even though you're in the creative industry, you were focused on the bottom line from the beginning. So, I think that sort of lent itself here. I can't say I looked at Blisswater from day one as I'm going to be profitable. But I think over a period of time, I realized that if I don't do it right away, then I'm going to be the only one losing on it.
Hmm.
So better start early. And it's okay to have that slightly lower growth rate. But as long as we're profitable, we'll sustain this better.
Hmm.
So I think that made the difference.
How are you translating that to your entire team to hold the bigger picture and the bottom line and the details, right? Attention to detail.
Yes. I've told you that my core team is very small. We just are about little less than 30 people, between 28 to 30 people. That's our core team. Everyone else, what we do is we work along with our distributors or along with our production, where we have our contract manufacturing. We use their resources like a combination. So that way we're not very people heavy. Neither are we extremely asset heavy either. So we've ensured that. But the core team, therefore, we ensure that every week we're consistently, reviewing each other's work. Everyone has a voice in my organization. There's no one who's not allowed to walk in and say they've got an idea and that won't be, considered. Same thing, if I'm listening to you and I agree or disagree is a decision that I will take, but at least let me listen. So I think that they also follow with their subordinates and whoever they work with. I think that sort of trickles down as you try to push through that. But we've also been a little careful that we've always ensured and told our team members that you're part of a growing organization. So today you might be handling social media, but tomorrow you might have to come to the production factory and do that as well. So be prepared for sort of being in this Venn diagram. You'll sort of be mixing, matching your, KRAs once in a while and be open to that. The more you do, the more you learn. And that they love
Yeah.
because the crowd is young. They want us do more. Of course, we keep our recipes a secret. We don't share that with everyone in the team.
I'm sure.
But a lot of things that can be sort of done. Suddenly, I'll walk up to one of the people in the office and say, "Hey, tomorrow I'm booking your ticket. Go to this place, meet this person." They're like, "What for?" I'm like, "Find the excise policy, whatever's new changes." But I've never done it. I'm like, "It's okay. What is the worst you will do? You'll miss a line or you know something, but that's fine." And that sort of is nice.
How do you hold them in their misalignment?
I think I'm a little careful in that sense to allow them a certain amount of degree of mistakes and give them work that they will be okay, doing that. I try not to overly, sort of push too much responsibility on them till they're ready. But once they're ready, I think it completely changes how they look at it. They become very owner driven about it.
What would be the core aspect of the culture that you've built at Blisswater?
You grow, the company will grow. So if you are always focused on your growth with the company in the background, that's all we're looking for.
How do you ensure that it is understood well? Because you grow, company grows.
Yeah, so I have
It's a very broad statement.
yeah, I have a policy that my door is open for you to come and discuss anything work related. I don't want to know your personal life.
Hmm.
Yeah, so when I say that, I'm here for your professional growth. When you grow professionally, automatically the value of it will be seen in the business as well. And of course, that's also incentivized. For example, one of my teammates, she walked up to me and said, "Ma'am, I found that I have a particular person in this particular state. We've not considered it. Would you be open to, starting it? I will do all the groundwork." Now, she is not sales. Okay, she's not anything to do with sales. She's completely a different department that has never stepped into sales or marketing at all. So my next question to her was, "Okay, sure. Why do you want to do it?" She said, "Ma'am, first of all, I can say I opened the state for our company." I said, "Great. Okay. What else?" She says, "Ma'am, I want X value incentive on it." I said, "Great. Let's do it." So she's working on it.
Would you call yourself high accountability, high ownership sort of a culture?
Yes, for sure. And especially when you're a small team, That has to be there.
Hmm.
Because there is no room for laziness,
Hmm.
or there's no room for errors. There are, I mean, of course, no matter what you do, there are errors. I'm not talking about the error side of it, but I'm talking about there's no complacency, there's no laziness. Yeah, so that I think makes a difference.
The industry you are in, you make it sound very cool, Varun. Seriously. And I'm sure that forget the whole concept of male dominated or culturally challenging, but there's a lot of difficulties,
Yes.
challenges, and even nastiness to some extent,
A
right?
lot. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
One, how do you deal with it? One, and how do you help your team to deal with that?
I'll give you an interesting anecdote that happened. One of the states that we opened, we had done a little bit of research, whatever best we could do, but we did not understand the nuance of the market. Now, whoever was supposedly in charge of that particular domain for us also misguided us in a certain way. Whether it was deliberate or not, we don't know, and we don't want to get to that aspect. But one day I received a call from the local from the local stores saying, ma'am, we love your products. The product is moving well in the market. But there's an incentive that we, give our salespeople, right? They said the incentives are not reaching us. I said, that's not possible. My team's been very clearly sharing that. So he was also stunned. He said, I had a feeling because you don't seem the kind to not, do it. I said, okay, this is something very serious. So let me just figure out what it is. The next thing I did, call my team and I said, book me to this particular place. I gotta go right away. They're like, what happened? I said, let me go find out. Took the next, canceled everything that was, supposed to happen back in. Went the next day, went and sat across, and I realized that it was happening across. Now, there were two things to it. One of them told me, ma'am, yahan pe jo hai, like the local people, they don't want your product because it's competing with the local range. People who are selling it love it, the consumers love it. So I think whoever was like supporting you in this has sort of gotten hand in glove with the local side. So I said, do you have proof? He said, nahi, मैंने सुना है ऐसे. So I said, look, if you don't have proof, I can't do anything about it. But I hear you from this particular point. Let me go back and figure out what I can do. Found a way to ensure that whatever had to be cleared for them happens directly from us instead of like a third party in between. And we made sure that, we were able to sort it out. But what that taught me is on one side, you've got your regulations, you've got this, but there's a whole large people associated with it. It's an industry that feeds so many homes, right? And if you don't get to the crux of it, at the end of the day, that's what we're all working for, to ensure that
Absolutely.
our houses, our bank balances are doing better than what they were doing a day before. But just understanding that made a difference. So yeah, that was an interesting sort of a place where I realized that nastiness was not just a surface, it is actually present. There is this feeling of she's new in the industry. Why should she get more? Who is she? All these kinds of things. And sometimes there is this sort of passive aggressive tone that you get to hear from them when you meet them socially or something like that. But over time now, they've sort of, I think all of these people have come to accept that, hey, she's here. It's
Yeah,
okay. Now,
she's
I
here for
mean,
good.
yeah, she's gone through the cycle. She's seen this, she's seen that. And she's not yet one of us, but she might be. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
she's not yet one of us.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
And here we are like so inspired by what you're doing. And you're saying you're still not yet one
I
of
mean,
them.
because there's a very long legacy of people in there and some amazing people. Like, I mean, the best part of this whole journey for me is no matter how much negative has happened, little here and there, the positive trumps it. Like, there is no two ways about it. The amount of forthcoming information that you get, surely out of somebody wanting to say, hey, you know what? She's new. Let's see what she can bring. And she doesn't have bad products. I mean, if she's created that, maybe she can do the business as well. So these thoughts are definitely there.
And you have more cool products coming up. And I know there's one more Salty Nut.
Yeah, Salty Nuts
That's a cool name too.
Yes, thanks. Salty Nuts just out in the market. We launched we started out of UAE in February, and then we brought to India from like April, May onwards. Wherever we've sent it, it's got an amazing response. So while Rahasya and Yaksha are more indie, sort of focused in terms of their names and their thoughts, Salty Nerd is for the Gen Z, the more contemporary crowd. That's more focused on I'm who I am. I'm not, I don't have to abide by the so-called rules that have been there since generations. I'm rebellious and I'm salty and I'm a proud nerd. So I think it sort of imbibes all that together in it.
Okay, I love it. The Gen Zs have a product too. Yeah, as I said, you make it sound cool. You've been doing a great job. At the same time, as a woman, right? We have you. One side, you have this complicated. I mean, I'm not saying complicated, but it is a tough. It doesn't seem like it's a very easy business to be in, which needs a lot of your attention, alertness, focus. And there is one side, your family, right? That also needs the same care and attention. How do you balance it?
Well, I think I will take some cues from there. You've had various hats in all of your life, right? And I think women are good at multitasking, right? So it's just about prioritizing what you want to, assign your energies the most to. So yeah, I think that makes a difference. Of course, we're juggling too many things, and there are times that some of it falls off. But I think it's also important to say, okay, you know what, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay to sort of
And be kind to yourself,
yeah.
right?
And regarding this whole difficulty of the sector, right? What's interesting about this is it's like you want to go to a different country, your visa process is different,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, if you put that much effort in getting the right visa, you got to do the same for a product. So it's like that.
I love the way you simplify it, Vani. Yeah, you do. And I think that's going to be, it's been a very big inspiration for me.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it will be for the audience too.
Thank you.
Ready for the rapid fire round?
Oh wow.
Rahasya, Yaksha, or Salty Nut? Which one is your secret favorite?
I think Rahasya will always trump it. It was my first. It will continue to hold that special place. The other two also have their zones, I love drinking a whiskey, so I made the whiskey similar to what I would like. Yes. And Salty Nut is just so fun. So yeah, I think it's got like a little bit of all, but that little bit of extra favorite is Rahasya.
Lovely. The one skill every young woman leader should prioritize learning right now.
Wow. I think perseverance.
Perseverance.
Yeah. Patience and perseverance. So important. Everyone has great ideas. There's no dearth of ideas. But to make that idea actually happen into reality, executing that, going through the grind, I think that perseverance forms a very important part of it. And if somebody can focus on that, it'll be really helpful.
My takeaway is how beautifully you said everybody has their thoughts, advice. I went back, put it into a note, and just looked at it and saw how I can decode this.
Yes.
That apprehension, that emotion, how can I make it positive? A feed forward, right? It was brilliant. Your biggest leadership mistake you learned the most from?
I think trusting without due diligence. I would put it that way. I'm a very trusting person, but I think where I am now, it's important that I do due diligence, which I wouldn't do before.
Loud music and driving at night. What's on the playlist?
I love music. I have this one song that I listen to whenever I'm a little. I don't know if down is the word, but sometimes just introspective. I listen to Vienna by Billy Joel a lot on repeat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's what I will do.
Are you more of a mischievous yaksha or an enigmatic rahasya?
Definitely mischievous Yaksha, but I think I'd like to be an enigmatic Rahasya. We'll let the world decide if that's where it's going to be.
The one thing you would tell your 25-year-old self.
You know that idea you had when you were 25? That's not gonna work. There's something else bigger, better that's gonna happen when you're like in your 30s, 35, yeah.
Or it could evolve to become a
Yeah.
better one too, right?
Yeah, it's not what you thought. It's something way better, way cooler. I mean, you aged like a good whiskey, so.
Oh, wonderful. It was, this whole conversation was so beautiful. And I know that you made it sound light, cool, and so easy. But there is one strong woman behind all of this, resilient and the neuroplasticity with which you're holding this is absolutely visible in every single word you shared.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a masterclass for me.
Thank you. I really appreciate the way you brought it out, and I'm so glad we did this.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.